Alright, welcome back to the Blender 3 Docwalk. This document is on the Annotate tool. Alright, so we are going to be talking about the Annotate tool, which is this guy right here. And like we talked about in the last video, if I left click and hold, I see all of the subtools. So I've got Annotate, Annotate Line, Annotate Polygon, and the Eraser. Whoops. Let's grab Annotate here. So Annotate is for just kind of freehand drawing. If you have a tablet, you can write things pretty nicely. And jot down pretty quick little notes. Annotate Line is for just making quick little lines that, you know, we'll go over this a little bit more in a second here. Annotate Polygon is for making polygons, and the polygon is complete when you hit the escape button. So tapping escape, now it's a complete polygon there. And then of course Annotate Eraser. The radius of your eraser can be set here as well as over here on our sidebar. If we come down to the Tool tab, we can see that we've got several options for whichever tool that we've got selected. Likewise, if we come up here to the top of our properties, this is for the active tool. Click on that. We can see the same options here as well. So let's go back to the original freehand Annotate, and let's talk about a couple of these. First, we've got the color. Okay, we can set the color to whatever we like. All right, so that's color. Next to it, we've got this little kind of drop down that says Note. Okay, this is our annotation layer. It's a bit of a popover menu where we can add different notes, stylize each one separately, that sort of a thing. We can also access this up here as well. Okay, so within this control, we can add a new annotation layer by hitting this plus sign right here. And in this way, we can actually, you know, whoops, we can change its color for whatever reason. We can order it. We can change the opacity. So if I go ahead and, you know, make a few squiggles, it's going to show up, you know, not quite as bright. We can take it all the way down, all the way up, whatever. We can alter the thickness. All right, so there's a lot you can do to customize your annotations throughout here. Yeah, so this is how we, you know, manipulate the annotation layers, their styles, their thicknesses, opacity, all that sort of thing. We can also create an entirely new annotation data block. So now if we pop back over here and come down to placement, okay, this determines how the annotations are applied to your project. So for instance, let's kind of take a look at what's going on here. If I rotate around here, you'll notice that all my annotations right now are currently on one single a plane that kind of cuts across my view screen, right? Well, that's because my placement is set to 3D cursor. How this works is, you see my 3D cursor here, right here in the center. So what it does is it calculates a plane that is parallel to my view screen, in relationship to my scene, and it places that parallel plane slicing right through where our 3D cursor is. That's why it's slicing right through there like that. Okay. Another option is to set placement on the view itself. So here, let's you know, well, doesn't matter. Okay, let's just move this down a little bit. All right, we're gonna add a new note or a new layer here. Blunk, and good, nice and blue. Make sure we've got. Yeah, I think we're good. Yep. Okay. So now I'm just gonna kind of make a squiggle across here. Now you see the difference in a second here. I'm going to rotate my scene here, and you'll notice that it's not rotating. It's just kind of staying there. It's actually written on my 3D viewport screen here, right? It's just going to kind of stay there. All right. So the next option is an object surface. So if we come back down here, kind of zoom in on this guy a little bit. And let's throw one more in here. Change the color. Let's do yellow. Yellow works. All right, now I'm just going to kind of squiggle right here. Just trying to make it nice and obvious so you can really see what's happened here. Yeah, that's good. All right, now we're going to rotate it and see what happened. It has been applied directly to the surface of my cube. So that's the difference between our placement options. All very useful in different situations, all very cool. Now keep in mind that there is one more option that doesn't usually show up in the 3D viewport, but it does show up in a nodes editor. So let's kind of just pull this up to show you. Pull that open, hit N to bring up my side panel, select this guy, okay, and now I've got my image as a placement option. It's actually already pre-selected, okay. Image is a placement option. So view, of course, is much like the other one. If I zoom in, zoom out, kind of scroll around, it just stays right there. Like, you know, it's right on my view window. If I select image, see, and that's the difference here. It just kind of will move around along with. It's like I just wrote it right next to kind of the background that I've been plugging my my nodes onto. So that's that. All right, let's jump back over to layout. Okay, so I'm just gonna hop over here. I'm gonna just clear out these guys. I don't need them. But let's, whoops, get a new one going, nice and green, and we're going to talk about stabilize stroke. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to kind of bring the surface in a little bit. Actually, maybe I'll just line up nice and neat like this. There we go. All right, now I'm going to use my tablet with my stylus and give you a good idea of what the difference is between stabilize stroke turned on and toggled off. So this is it without any stroke stabilization. Very smooth. I probably should have chosen a different color. Let's do that now that we can. Okay, so with your mouse, it's a little jaggedy, but you know, whatever. When you're using a stylus, you can, you know, it's got pressure sensitivity, so if I push hard, it shows up. If I just do a light little strokes, it, you know, has nice little light feathery strokes, and I can change how much pressure I'm putting on there. But now you'll notice with the stylus, it's very nice and flowy. It has a very good consistency to it. If I turn on stabilize stroke, it's a little rougher, and the reason being is because the radius and the factor here kind of it tries to see how it's kind of trying to, I don't know, it's trying to make my stroke smooth, like it's trying to kind of predict what I'm going to do next and how the, you know, the motion of the line is going, and it feels more like I'm dragging kind of a vector based. I mean, it is vector based, but you know what I mean. It feels more like I'm dragging point to point. Personally, I don't like it. I think I feel like I get better performance out of it without stroke stabilization on. However, if you're using a mouse, it gives you a much smoother look to whatever you're doing. Now that I've got this big mess of scribbles here. So what the radius does is it's the distance from the last point before the stroke continues. So you'll notice that when I place it down, there's kind of this little circle with the tail there. That is the radius. So if I crank this up a little bit, that length, that tail is a little bit longer. And if I crank my factor up a little bit more, the factor basically is kind of your factor of your smoothness, how much smoothness it's trying to apply. So if it's cranked up, it's going to have a much longer kind of draw feel to it. It really is starting to feel like you're kind of dragging it along. It's not an immediate impression. For I guess some applications this is okay, but if you're going to use a stylus, I really feel like, so that was all mouse. This is stylus. It just feels much more natural. It feels much more like you are in control. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of that little guy there, and we'll start a new one up. We'll do red is good, I guess. Pull back out here. That guy needs to get cleaned. I mean, he doesn't need to, but whatever. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Turn that down a little bit. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so this next part is specific to Annotate Line, and I'll show you how this sort of plays out here. You'll notice over here in my properties, you'll notice over here I've got style start and end. So here, I'm going to take this off surface. We're going to do the 3D cursor, and for my start I want some sort of like let's do a square. End, I want it and just an arrow. Okay, and how this works is these are decorators for the endpoints of your line. So if I just kind of set this out and drop it, I have a square at this end and an arrow at this end. This is obviously handy for certain types of notes or pointing things out, or different types of notation. So it's definitely something worth remembering that it has this capability. One thing to keep in mind, if I come up here and I add another annotation layer here and make a couple more marks here, when you select the annotation eraser, it will only erase whatever annotation layer that you are on. So if I try to erase the red one here, it's not going to do very much. See, but it will take care of my my blue lines. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's, whoops, oh my gosh. Not a big deal, but useful to know. And finally, the last thing, let's go back to our freehand over here. Down here, well, not down here. Let's see. Let's go down to View, drop down to Annotations. Okay, so View tab at the very bottom, Annotations, and we've got an option for turning on onion skinning. Now, this is something we're going to talk about a little bit more later. If you don't know what onion skinning is, just kind of lock it away in your mind as something that you can do with annotations. But this is something that animators use. If you've ever watched, like a Disney special where it shows the animators and they're sketching out, frame by frame, and they'll take a piece of paper and then kind of flip it over and sketch a little bit and then put it back over, and it's a really thin piece of paper, and they have it on top of a table that emits light through the paper so they can see the drawing underneath the onion skin, and then they're drawing on the paper above it just the next sequence, the next frame. So they can see the previous frame, and they're using that to kind of sketch the next frame, right? That's basically onion skinning, except with computers, you can do onion skinning into the future as well. So you're not just, past onion skins or building on onion skins. You can do both previous and future frames, which is definitely quite helpful. But yeah, so just know that it's there. We're going to get into it in much more detail later. And yeah, I think that's about that. So that was the Annotate tool. I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you guys soon.